Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I don't think that we should wait any longer for those that have joined. Thank you very much for joining this briefing session. Just by way of introduction, my name is Janet Cotton. I'm the Managing Director of 180 Materials Engineering Solutions. And this root cause analysis Africa conference is something that I came up with some time ago, and we had the inaugural event this past year, which was quite successful. We're looking forward to building on that success and dramatically improving participation next year in March of 2026. So, by way of introduction, Africa is standing at a historical pivot point. Across the continent, the pace of industrialization is accelerating, and the world is taking notice. Just last year, Angola overtook Nigeria as Africa's top oil producer. Namibia has discovered significant offshore oil reserves and gas reserves, with final investment decisions expected next year in Q4. Uganda and Tanzania are building the East Africa crude oil pipeline, which is the longest heated crude oil pipeline ever built in the world, here on this continent in Africa. Oil has been struck in the DRC, and as of today, ENI announced a fresh investments in Ghana just this week. South Sudan has seen its economy expand at a remarkable pace on the back of energy, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. The question we must ask is not whether Africa will industrialize, but how it will industrialize, and whether it will do so in a way that is resilient, safe, and sustainable. To understand the scale of what is missing currently in Africa, let me give you a benchmark. In the United States, one of the world's most advanced industrialized economies, over 200,000 to 300,000 people are employed in the materials engineering business. The sector is made up of between 1,000 to 3,000 companies, from small firms with a few employees to mid-sized operators to major listed players on the stock exchange. Together, they form a robust ecosystem that supports every mega project in the United States, ensuring technical integrity, safety, and long-term reliability. Now, let's compare that to Africa. Across the entire continent, poised for explosive growth, a handful of niche players in materials engineering expertise is dangerously thin. And we already know the cost of that gap. Look no further than Madupi and Kasile, projects worth billions, meant to power growth, but instead marred by technical failure and oversight gaps. The result? Years of load shedding in South Africa, lost productivity, eroded investor confidence, and hardship felt in every corner of South Africa. To, this is the crisis, but also the opportunity. Africa has resources, the projects, and the ambition. But unless we build expertise and systems to de-risk projects through root cause analysis, we risk repeating these failures at an even greater scale. And that's why this conference matters. We are here to ensure that Africa does not just industrialize, but industrializes wisely, sustainably, and with the resilience to support generations to come. And on that note, I'd like to hand you over to our conference director, Antonio Marcela, who is going to give you some more information about the conference. He has a presentation, and after that, we will have questions and answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. I really appreciate that welcome. I'm just going to go ahead and share my my screen. So good afternoon and evening, everyone. Whether you're joining us from parts of South Africa or other parts of the continent, I would like to share a couple of stories with you before getting into the content of the presentation. So why is root cause analysis essential for us? In 2009, the motorsport world witnessed a real shocking accident. Felipe Massa's Ferrari Formula One driver was struck on the helmet by a flying suspension spring. At speeds over 260 kilometers an hour, the impact left him unconscious and his life really hanging in the balance. To many, it seemed like a random freak occurrence, not just but Formula One never really treats things as a chance. Every failure is thoroughly investigated through rigorous root cause analysis, not just asking what happened, but also asking why it happened and how we can ensure that that's never happened again. That mindset really changed sport forever. From Massa's accident and other tragedies, engineers and regulators worked together to develop the Halo cockpit protection system, uh, which is a titanium barrier that now shields every driver in the sport, and avoiding the painful incident recurring. This was really used as a catalyst for a safer, stronger future in racing. So, what are the lessons for us here in Africa? It's clear. As we stand on the threshold of rapid industrialization that Dr. Cotton referred to earlier, with multi billion-dollar projects in oil, gas, infrastructure, and mining unfolding in front of us, the risks we face are just as high and the stakes equally high. Equipment failures, safety incidents, system breakdowns don't just cost money, but they also cost lives and reputations. So, if we adopt root cause analysis in our minds, we can really transform setbacks into progress and lessons. Root cause analysis helps us go beyond quick fixes and surface level explanations, ensuring that we build industries that are not only productive, but resilient, safe, and globally competitive. The future of Africa's industrialization won't be defined only by how fast we grow, but how deeply we're able to learn. And it's through root cause analysis that will secure a safer, stronger foundation. So, as Dr. Cotton referred to, Medupi and Kusile, in closer to home in South Africa, are living results of root cause failures, and we can really avoid those by learning from our previous mistakes. So, a quick definition of what root cause analysis is. Before we start, I don't want to assume that we have the same understanding of root cause analysis. So let's look at it technically. By definition, it's a real systematic investigative process to identify fundamental causes of the failure, whether it's technical, procedural, human, and rather than just looking at immediate symptoms. The steps include evidence collection, technical testing, causal mapping, and then followed by clear recommendations to prevent recurrence. These can cover metallurgical failures, corrosion, fatigue, design flaws, fabrication defects, and operational misuse. But taking one step back, I really wanted to join forces with Dr. Cotton and the company 180 Engineering because throughout my career, I've really been responding to disasters and reacting afterwards, post facto. And I really wanted to try and change the focus. And for me, root cause analysis really helps to manage risk. And rather than responding to it when it's too late, to build preparedness, to mitigate or reduce, and to also work with insurance colleagues where you can't eliminate the risk by transferring it. But I also believe that we'll look in detail at the root cause analysis, you can try and eliminate and reduce the risk before it happens or ex ante. So by preventing repeat failures, one can also understand their root causes. We need to bring the various stakeholders who are normally brought together during afterwards when they're forced to speak to each other. We want to bring them together in the comfort and the safety beforehand, and close that stakeholder gap between engineers, producers, insurers, and the legal experts before crises happen. So that makes that's really justifies the root cause analysis conference from the start. When's it going to happen? Um, Following on the achievements of this year's inaugural conference, we're planning the next one on the 11th and 12th of March at the Asara Hotel in the Winelands district, in the peace and sanctity of that area. What is our mission? To really strengthen Africa's capacity to prevent costly industrial and infrastructure failures in its boom years, building on the learning and the knowledge of world-class root cause analysis procedure and testing, much of which is actually available in Cape Town, South Africa. The aims and objectives of the conference are to provide an opportunity to showcase real world case studies of material and structural failures and the investigations that were conducted to solve them, to also share state-of-the-art analytical tools and laboratory techniques that are available to us on the continent, to also invest in building local capacity so that root cause analysis becomes a standard practice that's mainstreamed across all of Africa's industries, and to importantly, to also link some of the technical findings to procurement, insurance, legal decision making, so that we can actually reduce financial and reputational loss before that happens in the first place. Let's look at um, the key topics. So we're looking at about 5 or 6 key topics, and we're encouraging paper presentations, exhibits, to focus on the following areas. So failure analysis methods from quite a technical point of view in terms of microscopy or fractography and corrosion testing. Also, the selection of material and design for durability, looking to identify manufacturing defects, welding and coating failures. Another area focusing on corrosion, fatigue, and environmental degradation, and also risk reliability, insurance, and legal perspectives on root cause analysis evidence, building on much of the work that Dr. Cotton and 180 does in the legal sphere, providing expert legal advice upon which legally binding and financial implications are constructed, and also to flag emerging innovations in material science and testing. So who should really be there? Who do we want to gather under the ceiling, under the same roof? We really want to attract materials, mechanical and structural engineers. We want the quality assurance managers there too, producers and manufacturers of industrial components, and the insurance underwriting community and loss adjusters. We also want the lawyers and legal experts who are involved in contracts and liability. And where would we be without the academics and the researchers and mature students who are working in material science? What we do know is that in the times of peace, outside of failures happening, these communities and stakeholder groups tend to exist in isolation of each other, and they work in silos. And what we're really wanting to do, the vision of the conference, is to bring these stakeholder groups together so that they can share best knowledge and work proactively rather than reactively. So I just want to touch on some of the benefits of attending. There's a clear value proposition. So reducing costly failures and downtime before they even happen. We know well about planned and unplanned outages, the cost of warranty claims and litigation costs. Those I really don't need to explain. But we also want to build engineering reliability across Africa rather than outsourcing it to Europe and North America, as is so often the case. And we really want to gain the technical and managerial skills to make projects resilient based on empirical research and design going forward. We also want to encourage cross-disciplinary and cross-stakeholder insights and the sharing of knowledge so that academics can interact in the forum together before disasters happen. There'll be also many audience-specific payoffs, bringing technical professionals together in hands-on workshop, and also bringing decision makers together, providing evidence on the return on investment and the real financial benefits of how early root cause analysis being integrated in the testing of materials and procedures, looking at the metal composites, the welds, the various coatings on metals to make sure that claims can be avoided and downtime and reputational damage can be eliminated. We also want there'll be a good program depth and opportunity for networking. So we're balancing content, looking at everything from real world failure investigations and hearing from the engineers who solved them to providing interactive workshops, looking at root cause analysis, testing procedures, and techniques. There'll also be panels where an engineer, a lawyer, and insurer will debate single failure from different angles, and we can understand the various stakeholders' perspectives and where they're coming from. We'll also make sure by making this a specifically Pan-African event, we'll be dealing with African problems and African solutions, looking at local case studies, such as mine tailing failures, pipeline corrosions, many of the facts that Dr. Cotton talked of before, so that we apply lessons directly to national and regional and continent-wide industries. We also want to work with provide structured networking opportunities through exclusive meet and greet opportunities, matchmaking opportunities, B2B business to business opportunities, as well as roundtable discussions, so that participants can really work and link socially, formally, and informally in non-pressured environments to share experience and learn lessons. Also, the conference will be an opportunity where there can be real credibility and reach and contact with advisory board members and prominent academics in the materials engineering community and space. Internationally recognized engineers and industry leaders will be sharing their knowledge and experience in a closed and trusted environment. And also, we provide an opportunity for key academic leaders to share that knowledge and an opportunity for participants to expand their professional network. It's also an opportunity for other stakeholders to profile some of their expertise, and also for some of the larger companies to get involved and provide sponsorship and exhibit. So there'll be there's a number of sponsorship opportunities as well as business development contexts where legal firms might be able to also share their experience. So, what are the next steps? Please, if you haven't already, visit the conference site, which is on the slide, or we'll be able, very happy to send it to you. Register as early. We've extended some of the deadlines, and by virtue of you attending this briefing, we will have extended your early bird registration fee, saving you almost 30%. So please register, make sure that you pay and that we receive your payment. That secures your seat. And we've really made a conscious commitment to make this a smaller, curated event. We're not looking at a huge conference of 1,000 people or more. We're really wanting to cap this at 100 to 150 participants, and we've been slightly overwhelmed with the level of interest via LinkedIn and the various platforms that we're using. So we really do encourage you, once you've registered, to make your payment to secure your seat. And then also, please, if you are able to, either participate as an exhibitor, or if you feel any of your research or your professional context would you'd like to profile that through a paper presentation or a poster, you'd be very welcome to submit an abstract, which we are considering at the moment still. And spread the word in your networks, whether it's in the engineering, in the mining, energy sector, underwriting or insurance or legal, please spread the word, because we're really wanting this to be an opportunity for Africans, by Africans, to share that knowledge. So please do um, spread the word. So with that, I'll stop sharing and I'll hand back to Dr. Cotton, and I'm sure we're happy to take any questions. Thanks, Janet.
Any questions from the audience? Please be brave. There are no stupid questions. We would love to hear from you. Or any comments, uh, guide us as to how this conference should look. What would be useful to you? What would you like to see? What would you like to learn? Please feel free to say anything. That's what we're here for. And perhaps while you're building up the courage to ask a question, I can share from the previous conference a little story. So one of the loss adjusters who's been in the industry for over 40 years, who works in South Africa, a very well-known loss adjuster named Richard Baker, presented on a matter where a solar plant was being built. So the owner had raised the money for the solar plant, appointed a contractor, and taken out an insurance policy for in case the project ran over and he would have to pay penalties. The elbow joints that were installed for the cooling system were worth 90 Rand, and there were 1,000 of them. So that's 90,000 Rand. They received the elbow joints with what's called a 3.1 inspection certificate. They installed the system and they pressurized it at commissioning, and all the elbow joints failed. Root cause analysis revealed that the elbow joints contained what is called a folding flaw in metallurgical terms. Now, this would have been detected if underwriters had insisted on a 3.2 inspection before those elbow joints were installed. But at 90 Rand an elbow joint, it's tempting to think that these are fairly benign components and they aren't significant because they only cost 90 Rand. But at the end of the day, those 90 Rand elbow joints cost the underwriter 500 million Rand in late delivery fees for which the insured was insured for. So I think that's the sort of context and connections that we are trying to create, or not trying. We will create and did create in the last conference, where for underwriters certainly. The cost of doing a 3.2 inspection on a batch of elbow joints is only about 8,000 Rand. It would have saved them 500 million Rand. So please ask your questions that you might have. Your comments.
Yes, I think, I mean, if it would be easier, please do feel free to write any messages, any questions in the message, and we would be happy to address them. So just thanks to Asha and Chris for engaging and for your participation. I know it's late in the day, but we scheduled this at this time because we're mindful of people having to work. So Chris writes, in the construction industry, we normally have some on-site testing, but this is no guarantee of premature failure. How does RCA help in such cases, Janet?
Okay, so with on-site testing, I'm assuming that you're talking about the cube testing on the concrete cubes. And that has to happen en masse. And usually there's a sort of mobile laboratory that comes around and tests the cubes. So your question was, how does the on-site testing help you with root cause analysis? Okay, so
Yeah, and also said correct and density test for compacted materials.
yes, okay. So, first of all, the purpose of testing, and I can draw on my experience from the oil and gas industry, and we do a lot of weld procedure qualification record tests. So, yes, you mix the cubes and you test them, and you get a certificate that the cube is 300 MPa or 50 MPa. Oh, sorry, not 350 MPa or 30 MPa, whatever the case may be. In oil and gas, you need to weld pipe or plates. And so you qualify the welding procedure, you conduct the test, and that report goes into a file. And that is a risk mitigation document. The danger comes in with when you don't test. So in the case of Majupi and Kusile, we know that the required processes were not followed in terms of testing, and it resulted in the failure of those two power stations. Likewise, if you don't conduct testing on site in construction, um, and then follow the same recipe that you have tested. So the risk is, you mix up the concrete cubes correctly, you test them, you get a certificate, but then you don't follow the same process during the construction process. Um, so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but we do have three matters at the moment in construction dealing with the failure of paint and plaster on buildings. And what is clear is that there's huge inconsistencies between painting on one day to another day, the mixtures of plaster from one day to the next day, and areas of the building where plaster is peeling off. And we've done all kinds of analysis and core samples, and we found huge inconsistencies with the admix, if that's the right word, for the plaster, and therefore the paint doesn't stick to the plaster correctly, or the paint isn't mixed up correctly. And so there seemed to be very little process control, even though the on-site testing was done and it all passes. Then you still need to effect process control during the construction process. And that's the same in oil and gas. So even while the welders are welding in certain high risk situations, they need to run out a production test plate just to check that they are still welding the same way as they welded when they qualified the welding procedure. That's the case, for example, for the East Africa crude oil pipeline. That is a requirement in that particular case. So I suppose I don't know if I've answered your question. Maybe you can give me some feedback.
Thanks very, very much for that, Janet. Um, Chris, if you did want to ask anything, okay. So Chris says you have addressed that. Chris, if you have any more questions, please do feel free to add them. Taryn writes to Janet. Thanks very much for the presentation. I'm new to reliability engineering and facilitating RCAs. Does the conference cover how an RCA should be, or the most successful way to actually do it? Are there materials you could recommend that may assist? Thank you. Janet?
Yes. Okay. So yes, the we want to make the RCA conference multidimensional. So it's not just an engineering conference. We know that engineers are frightening people, so we don't want to make it an engineering conference. So what I'm trying to say with regard to methodology for root cause analysis, by looking at how other people see RCA and how they use the results thereof, such as bankers, insurers, legal experts, and also engineers. By getting the perspective of different people plugging into the system in different ways, and having presentations from different parties, I think that the collection of information is what you would benefit from in terms of a root cause analysis. So, to give you an example, in my early days of my career, 23 years ago, um, the way I would write a root cause analysis report, that I had the unfortunate experience of it landing into a courtroom without knowing that it was going to be, I hadn't written it in the way that it was intended to land as a court document, a court ready document. So that taught me a lot, because when the lawyers started to look at what I'd written and test my logic under cross examination, there were a lot of things that I had not addressed. So at the conference, we are this year in March, we had an attorney give a presentation, two attorneys, in fact, Malcolm Hartwell being a well-known maritime attorney at Norton Rose Fulbright, and he presented from a legal point of view how he uses the information to fight a matter. And his problem that he's trying to solve is to win in litigation. Richard Baker's problem is to ensure that the insured or the insurer, whether it's the insured or the insurer, is dealt with fairly as a loss adjuster. So he will interpret root cause analysis completely differently. Engineers, we have the tendency to possibly roll out far too much detail and not deal with the commercial issues, and contextualize the engineering in a commercial way. And that is why we need to learn from financiers and underwriters as well. And then also seeing how other engineers approach things. I think that by attending the conference for 2 days, you will have very good experience and knowledge of how to approach it for yourself within your own career.
Thanks, Janet. Thank you. That's really comprehensive. Taryn, if you had any follow-on question, then please feel free to ask via audio or write. Um, Asher, you had just something that I wanted to. Could you? I'm just going to mute Janet because I'm getting feedback. But please unmute Janet when she speaks. I just wanted to take the opportunity to build on what you said, Janet. Really, what we're wanting to do at the conference is give people a safe space to speak, right? And given what both Janet outlined in the beginning and also what I outlined, we're seeing radical growth, radical expansion across Africa, right? And generally, we're used to exporting the technology, exporting the expertise, and not enjoying the profits. And we're really wanting to mainstream this best practice of root cause analysis. And it almost requires a United Nations type response. And I really appreciated Janet speaking about that earlier, that we're needing a United Nations level response. And that's what we're wanting to try and do, is have a United Nations representation of this shared experience, the shared knowledge coming together in the at the conference. That's what we're trying to create and provide an enabling environment for root cause analysis to be mainstreamed. What we don't want is to continue being in a reactive mode where we only bring those stakeholders together when they're forced to, after when an accident or a failure happens. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's be proactive and share that knowledge, just as Janet gave a real lucid argument. So so thanks for that, Janet. Since then, Chris has come back and asked a question. Are there any guideline documents for root cause analysis that can be shared for such reports that you described, Janet? Over to you.
Uh, I guess that I could possibly put something together. I could possibly share our failure mode effect analysis presentation, which outlines our approach, and it sort of talks to a mechanical failure as well as a corrosion failure in the failure mode effect analysis presentation. And I guess I could generate a technical bulletin in this regard. We have access to a vast array of handbooks that we subscribe to as engineers, and within those handbooks, there's an entire volume which is about so thick, that deals with root cause analysis. So, I could, distill that down to the key points and distribute that as possibly a contribution to if that would make you feel more interested to participate. Something that I also would like to see at the conference, and it's something that I witnessed when I attended the Uganda Chamber of Mines and Energy and Minerals conference earlier this year, is a debate with a financier, lawyers, loss adjusters, insurance professionals, underwriters, and an engineers. And they had that debate that was moderated for an hour, where they actually took the ECOP project and said, where we're all now, now that the project is flying, where did we what did we do right and what did we do wrong? So I think something like that as well in the conference. That's what we envisaged, is to have a session on both days for 1 hour where we have a debate of that sort of nature. So I don't know if that deals with what you asked, Chris.
So Chris is just typing, so maybe just stand by. Okay, he was just saying thank you. Um, yeah. Janet, I'm aware just that how busy you are, sort of from from a responding point of view. So I'm not sure, how much time you have to, put together detailed manuals. But I mean, what we're really wanting to do is for this type of exchange to be happening at the conference, and that's why we're really offering opportunities for external and individuals like Taryn, like Asha, like Chris to really attend the conference themselves and to bring your networks, because this is new. But just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean that we shouldn't try and we shouldn't persevere and make our own individual commitment. And that's why I'm so excited about this conference, because it resonates from yeah, really from just making because it makes sense, yeah, from an economic point of view, from a life-saving point of view, from a continental development point of view. So I think it's really important that we sort of come together at the conference and really try and share that. um, Janet, Chris has just said there's a fine point where material failure from poor concrete, mixed design, and bad operation practices lead to premature failure. Is root cause analysis robust enough to differentiate in such cases?
Quite confidently. Must I go closer? Oh, sorry. Yes, I can say confidently that on the three matters that we have been involved in construction, and particularly of buildings, and high value buildings in Bantry Bay, um, we have been able to get on top of what was the problem. Had the concrete been mixed properly, had the plaster been mixed properly, had the paint been applied, was which was the culprit, or was it all three? And to what extent did which one contribute to the point where these matters are going to trial? So yes, root cause analysis can give you those sort of answers. Um, I also just wanted to say, Chris, that I think you sound like an engineer or a technical person. We are going to also have 2 days prior to the conference, technical workshops. And we are going to have in attendance at the conference a laboratory in France called CETM, and they are going to share their newer technologies around root cause analysis, and they will tell you that there are over 1,000 employees in CETM, and every single failure in France triggers a root cause analysis. So they have an entire department of 1,000 people dedicated to root cause analysis. So that is how important, the Western world see. Not that we're not the Western world, but that is how important the industrialized world considers root cause analysis.
Thanks, Janet. um, Chris mentions that he's a civil engineer of 28 years in. Yeah. And I actually wanted to Yeah, I wanted to follow up on one of Janet's questions to the participants. Um, do you feel that other members of your community, other members like either your colleagues in your organizations or in your networks, would be interested in those core areas? Because at the moment, while the conference has set out its objectives and those six core areas based on the expertise, we do have the flexibility within those parameters to try and take on and respond to suggestions. So I really feel there's an openness from Janet and my level to really try and ensure that the conference is as responsive and relevant as possible. So we would also welcome your inputs there. Janet, I see that Aisha is also typing. So um, and that that the participants are sharing their email addresses. So I think they are keen to receive more information.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if any of you have gone and had a look at sorry, I keep calling it last conference's agenda. And I think if you haven't, please go ahead and have a look. The first page is the non-destructive testing workshop. So, but just move on to Thursday and Friday sessions, and you'll see the mix of speakers, which does properly represent um, the ecosystem that comes together when there's a crisis. So we were able to achieve that with our conference, and um, yeah, we just want to expand from there and expand our reach from there right throughout Africa. Um, and I can also say that at the conference, yes, it was the inaugural event, but not one single person in the sessions opened their laptop and did some work on the side. Everybody was quite captivated by every single presentation. People had their laptops, but they kept them closed. And I thought that was an incredible achievement to keep the attention of people for 2 whole days. Um, there were some speakers that told me they could only come in for their talk and they would have to leave, but they were so fascinated by what the next person was going to talk about that they ended up staying for the whole day and asked if they could stay the next day as well. So I do think that we are pushing the right buttons.
Yeah, yeah. Janet, you had mentioned that this is happening the weekend after the Mining Indaba, and that we're expecting a number of participants from the Mining Indaba to remain on over that weekend. And indeed, it's the Cape Town Cycle Tour, so it might attract cyclists. But then we're expecting overflow from the Mining Indaba to stay on the following week. Is that correct? And you were also organizing some other workshop practical demonstrations in your laboratory facilities.
Yes. So what we are hoping to do, and certainly the Uganda Chamber, and I was on a call last week on Friday with a key Kenyan player, Total Energies, and they have a delegation that is coming from Kenya to the Mining Indaba. They are also interested, and so what we're planning to do is have fairly high level technical workshops for us engineers who want to geek out on technology for 2 days. So one will be on additive manufacturing, and the one will be on advanced non-destructive testing. Very exciting technology where you can actually see your welding in real time, and it's for welder training. It's brand new out of CETM, and so we will be presenting that. But on those 2 days, for the people that are not, you know, passionate about technical matters in the way that us engineers are, we plan to arrange B2B networking sessions at the conference venue. So Antonio's job will be that, if you do sign up as an attendee and you are available for meetings, to say so. That the attendee list will become public to those that that agree to them being public. And if there are people that you want to meet, Antonio will facilitate those meetings. And for those people that want to engage and meet and network, we will have a separate activity going for that. And whether that will be a hybrid of a sort of morning formal meeting and then an afternoon social activity, we're not too sure. We would like to hear from you what you would like. And depending on the participation after the conference, since people have come out from the Mining Indaba, the conference is going to be held on a wine estate the Wednesday and the Thursday. For those that are coming outside of South Africa, we thought if there's enough interest, we might host a picnic on the Friday afternoon to close the conference at the venue. But it's really going to depend on the participation and what feedback you give to us as to what would be exciting for you.
Um, Thank you. Thanks, Janet. I think yeah, I'm glad you made that point about the mining in Daba because um, it will be, I think, that will bring together so many of the various stakeholder groups that we've mentioned earlier in the presentations, and I think it's such a golden opportunity to have those various professions have an opportunity to speak to each other when they're level-headed and people are not on the defensive. They're not forced to speak together and, understanding well the principles of effective negotiation and diplomacy. I think when people can meet in times of peace and where there's not fingers pointing, people can actually share that best practice that you were talking about earlier and work towards establishing that an RCA community in South Africa, across Africa. So I think it's a real great opportunity, Janet.
Absolutely, Antonio. I mean, having been involved in over 24 matters that have gone to litigation, many of them in shipping, it's incredibly acrimonious when there's a failure. Um, I could be working with one attorney on a matter where I'm the designated expert, and on another matter with that attorney where I'm on the other side. It's just extremely acrimonious. It's extremely laborious and long-winded, and the one looks at these failures as a metallurgist and or materials engineer, and these all could have been mitigated.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I think that's what motivates me to present this conference. Is, as Antonio says, if we can talk about these things in a time of peace, when there is a catastrophic failure, perhaps it can also be dealt with in a more efficient manner than in this highly acrimonious, laborious, very admin intense manner.
High stakes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanted to make another point, but it's escaped me now. So,
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come. I'm sure it'll come back to you, Janet. I actually see that we only have 5 minutes left. Although definitely, if there are any more questions, we're willing to take those. And Kupa Kwashe, welcome. Good to see you. That you have joined us. Um, for those who have joined late, our IT wizard will definitely load the video online. So if you want to leave your email address in the chat, we'll make sure that we make that available to you. Janet, over to you. Uh, you're on
but,
mute.
on we'll place the video on the conference website tab on the company's website. So this video will go up on the conference website. So yes, if you've joined late and you got, it's always difficult to navigate GMT +2 or 3 and all of that. So I do understand that, but the video will be available, and you're always welcome to reach out to us, Antonio or myself. Telephone numbers are available, on email addresses are available. We will respond to you. So please don't be shy. Reach out to us with any question that you have.
Yeah. Janet, thanks so much for those words. And I really see I see this webinar as the first of many discussions that we're wanting to have with the various stakeholder groups. It's, this is really a first, and I feel, when we're working to bring about behavior change and changing in culture and the approach, I think, we're needing to take a number of small steps. So I think, if please do share the video link and the word with your network, with your own networks and stakeholder groups. And we're more than willing, Janet, I'm sure, to organize another briefing if there's a critical mass of people to have another. We can profile this. But back to you, Janet, and I'll leave the closing words to you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So the two things that I had thought of. The first thing is just to mention that there's the opportunity to exhibit. So if you want to have a stand and promote the services or the products of your company, there's an opportunity to exhibit and come on board as a supporting partner. It involves an exhibit stand, some branding, and one or two tickets. We are fairly negotiable as to how much space you would like, whether large or small. So we're negotiable on that. And the exhibit will be open to the public. So if you are exhibiting and you want to let your network know that you're exhibiting and you want to have, people come and meet you and that haven't registered for the conference, the exhibit will be open and free to the public. So there's that opportunity to promote your services by exhibiting and being a supporting partner or sponsor. The second thing I wanted to say, especially for you, Chris, you seem to be quite interested in the root cause analysis. I am giving a free online seminar on the 3rd of October, 3 case studies in litigation. So the 3 case studies are going to be a bollard failure, which resulted in a casualty, fire reticulation paint coating system failure, and a heat exchanger failure. All 3 resulted in litigation, and the cases are closed. They're all in the public domain, so I can talk about them, and I have shared them at Maritime Law Association meetings in the past. So that's happening on the 3rd of October. So just a little bit of a flavor of root cause analysis from a very technical metallurgical point of view. At the conference, we're going to expand that and make sure that it's expanded into finance and insurance and so on. And that's at 3 o'clock GMT +2. If you're interested in attending that, please let us know and we'll send you the invite for that on the 3rd of October. And so I suppose in closing, I can just say thank you very much, Antonio, for your presentation. Thank you to everybody that's joined the meeting. We really appreciate your support. This is a pioneering event, but it is the right event, because if we look at what America is doing, if we look at what Europe is doing, we have to follow suit. We have to build these expertise in Africa. There is no choice. Otherwise, we will be buying them from America and Europe at a very high cost, and probably under circumstances where failure has occurred and people want to just throw up their hands and walk away. So let's not do that. Let's get it right. And also, let's just believe that we're not too big to fail. And on that note, thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.